Hi, and welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy, and I am coming to you from eastern Nebraska, where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, March 5th, 2021. This is a channel all about my crafty life, and today I have crocheting and knitting to share with you all. You can find me online on Instagram and Etsy at Noble Character Crafts, and you can get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. A huge welcome to any new or returning viewers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. I am currently hosting a year-long make-along on Instagram called the Make 9 2021 Mal, and that is for you to enter in the Make 9 Challenge, where you choose 9 projects that you would like to make in the year 2021. Post a grid of those 9 projects to Instagram with the hashtag Make 9 2021 Mal. And then every time that you post a picture showing any progress or finished objects from your grid, you will be entered to win a prize that I am drawing periodically throughout the year. Any whips are allowed to be included in your boards, and also any crafts are allowed and encouraged. So any projects that you have in the making that you would like to finish up this year, or any projects that you would like to start and hopefully finish this year, you can certainly include in your grid. You do not have to finish anything from your board. It's really just a fun make-along that encourages people to try to focus on 9 projects that they would like to make this year, but there are no requirements. I don't want this to be a stressful make-along, just a fun one. So please join in if you haven't yet, and please let me know if you need any assistance making a grid to post to Instagram. I'm glad to help with anybody that needs to have some assistance putting together a grid. Today I am wearing my Cassandra cardigan, which is a beautiful design by Karina. I test knit this for her, and I knit it out of my own hand-dyed yarn. I absolutely love this cardigan. It's a longer cardigan. Maybe you'll see it when I stand up a little bit later, but anyway, I really enjoy this cardigan. It's made out of fingering weight yarn, and so it's just a really nice lightweight cardigan. On today's episode, I am going to be only going over my Scrappy projects that I have a few finished of and a few works in progress. So I am super excited to go over those with you all. I'm not going to be covering any of my other works in progress, so I will save that for next week's episode. But I am just going to be going over my Scrappy projects, so I'm super excited about that. The first one is a big deal. It's a big deal to me anyway. So my first finished object is my Scrappy Hexi Blanket. I was actually quite surprised that I was able to finish this. I thought I was going to want to make it bigger. I thought I was going to need to work on it a lot longer before it would be big enough, but I decided that it was a great size. So yeah, it's done, and I had contemplated whether I would add a border around the edge of it, but I've decided not to at this point anyway. So it is finished, and I am so excited about it. This is my own pattern that, it's a really simple hexagon pattern. I do have a YouTube tutorial that goes over how I made this blanket, so it shows you step by step how to make one yourself if you would be interested. I made mine all out of fingering weight yarn scraps. You can see it's very, very colorful. I will stand up in a minute so you can see it in full, but it just takes the tiniest bit of fingering weight yarn. And I used a C hook, which is 2.75 millimeter. This is a clover hook. And I joined all of the hexagons as I went along. I joined them together and crocheted over all the ends, so there wasn't a ton of finishing up work to, I didn't have to weave in a lot of ends. Just around some of the outside hexagons, there were ends that I needed to weave in, but for the majority of the hexagons, I was able just to crochet right over all of the ends, so that made it really simple to finish up. So I will stand up so you can see it in its entirety. Here it is. Ta-da! I will measure it and put down below how big it is and the dimensions of it, but it's a really good throw-sized blanket, I thought, and I didn't want it to get too big because I'm planning on just using this for my own personal use here in my room. So I'm not really willing to let this be a family blanket at this time anyway, because it is just so, it's really just precious to me and I don't want it to get wrecked. We have 5 young children between ages 7 and 12, 4 of which are boys. And so you can only imagine the amount of destruction that those boys specifically could do to a blanket. And so I'm going to be keeping this blanket in here in my room and using it for myself. And so I didn't really want it to be too big because I thought it would just be not as easy to, it was just going to be a little bit too heavy and too cumbersome if it was too large. And so I thought this was just a really great size. As I was working on it, it was covering me up near the end, and it was just a great size, and I decided it was good where it was, so I'm so happy with it. I'm surprised at how heavy it is, actually. It just has a bit of weight to it. Holding it up it's pretty heavy. So I decided to finish it off by just leaving the natural scalloped edge along the sides, and then the top, as you can see, has just a bit of a scalloped edge too. But there are ways of making half hexagons to make a straight line here, but I really like how this looks as well. So I'm super happy with it. I think it's great. And here's the wrong side, just so you have an idea of how it looks. Even on the wrong side, it still looks beautiful. I love it. This is going to be a much loved piece for me, so I'm so pleased with it. Each little hexagon is a beautiful little work of art. And it is just my favorite. It's my very favorite Scrappy blanket that I guess I have done other Scrappy blankets before, but this just seems so monumental for me to have this one completed. I'm so happy about it. I am planning to enter this into our county fair this year, so I'm excited about that, which means that I'm probably going to try to not use it too much, although I probably won't need to as the weather warms up anyway. But our county fair is in July, and I just don't want it to get worn at all. So I'm probably going to try to keep it pretty nice and neat as much as I can until then, before I start really using it more on a daily basis, I suppose. To block it, I just laid it flat and used my iron on the steam setting and just gave it a steam really only around the edges, because just some of the hexes just needed a little encouragement to lay flat, but not too much. The sides were the side pieces lay a lot more flat. The ones that have a tendency to curl up just a little bit, and even after steaming, it's not bad, but they kind of curl up just a little bit on the edges there. So I just steamed those and patted them down to lay flat. I think that's all that it really needed. This, I will definitely not be throwing this blanket in the machine ever. It will only be hand washed very gently, because I'm sure that some of these colors would bleed into each other if if I were to throw it in the wash. And of course there are a lot of ends. I feel that they are very secure, but they are just hand sewn in or crocheted over, so they're not I don't think they would withstand a severe laundering. So I will always be very gentle with this blanket, but it will be so loved. Once I finished that blanket, which was a few weeks ago, because up until I had every day for the last year at least, I had been adding 2 hexes to that blanket every morning. That was the first thing I did when I woke up in the morning, was I added 2 hexes to that blanket, and that was a really nice routine that I had. I really enjoyed doing that every morning, and I missed that. As soon as I finished this blanket, I knew I would miss that working on that little by little every day. So I really wanted to start another, I do have other Scrappy blankets, which I'm going to be showing you, but I wanted another blanket. I didn't have another blanket that used tiny little bits of fingering weight yarn. Anyway, I wanted just another one that was like that Hexi blanket, but a different pattern, but the same idea. So the first thing that I started working on was a tiny little granny square blanket. And so I was using, again, fingering weight yarn. I was using the same hook, so the 2.75 millimeter hook. And I was just doing a simple closed granny square, which I'll try to find a pattern for that. Emma of Potter and Bloom recently put up a tutorial, which I haven't had a chance to watch yet, but she's making a blanket that's kind of similar to this one using a closed square. So I'm going to check that out. And if that is the same as what I've done, I will link to that tutorial. Anyway, I was just playing around with this type of an idea for a blanket. And my original thought was that I was just going to make these tiny squares. They're just 2 rounds for each color. Again, I joined as I went along, like I did with my Hexi blanket. But I decided that I wasn't really enjoying the process so much. So I decided not to continue with that, but instead just to make this into a coaster. So I just bordered it with this darker brown color, and I'm just going to be using this as maybe even, you know, setting a candle on it or a coaster for coffee or something like that. So anyway, that was my first, you know, idea for a new Scrappy blanket, but I didn't continue with it. So that's another finished object, I guess. Very simple but cute. I really think it's cute. So then I was watching, I was looking online at so many different patterns, and I really wanted something that was unique, but like I said, still along the same lines of my Hexi blanket, where I could use tiny bits of scraps and make beautiful little pieces. You know, I really like the idea of making a tiny little piece that, like I said, each one of those little hexes is like its own little work of art, and I just love that idea. But I couldn't decide on what pattern to do. I looked at so many different patterns online, and I just wasn't finding what I was really looking for. And I was watching a new podcast by Lily Kate Makes. She is a knitwear designer that makes gorgeous patterns. I have my eye on several of her patterns. She makes a lot of garments, and I really love her designs. And she recently started doing a knitting podcast here on YouTube as well. And I was watching one of her episodes. And anyway, I really enjoy her podcast. If you have not heard of it yet or checked it out, I would highly recommend it. It's really fun to see the process that she goes through. She shares a lot of the process of her designs and how they're coming along. And so that's really fun to see. Anyway, in the background of her episodes, you can see her bed in her background. And on her bed, she has 2 throw pillows that have what looked to me to be crocheted diamond pattern motifs. And I messaged her and asked if those were handmade, and she said that they were actually store-bought. So I went on the hunt for a pattern that replicated that diamond pattern, and I found one that I think is really close. It is called the Diamond Motif it's the Crochet Diamond Motif pattern by Atty Van Norel. She has a website at atty-s.com, and it is a free pattern for this, and I think, I'm so happy about it. I think it's super cool looking. So this is my new Scrappy blanket, and I'm so excited about it. The pattern is super easy. Once you learn the first round, maybe the first 2 rounds, you've got it. And you can really make the diamond motifs as large as you want. I've decided to do 5 rounds for each motif. Again, as always, I'm crocheting over all the ends, joining as I go, so you don't see any on the back side, you don't see any of the loose ends except for, you know, a few around the edges that will be crocheted over as I add to it. When I used to, as I was making my Hexi blanket, as it was growing, I would always show it off when it was a full hexagon. So I had made a hexagon out of little hexagons. And again, you can see I've done that with the diamond. So I've made a large diamond out of these little diamond shapes. I just think that's so satisfying to see. So again, I'm using the same hook again, 2.75 millimeter. And of course, these tiny little rounds do not take hardly any yarn at all. So you can use the tiniest little bits of yarn that you have left over. And again, it's so much fun to come up with different color combinations to make a pretty little motif. And in this pattern, she does have half diamonds for both horizontal and vertical, I believe, so that you can square off a blanket. So that is what I'm planning on doing. But of course, this will be a long-term project as well, which typically scrappy blankets are, right? Scrappy projects are always long-term, in my opinion. So I'm so excited about that. Oh, I love it so much. It's so cool, I think. I am so, I just get so excited about making blankets in general. I love blankets and I love scrappy projects. So I'm so excited that I have another project to work on like that. So the next project I have to share with you is in this beautiful basket that I got from a thrift store. And this is my granny stripe blanket, and I use the tiny, like the very, very tiniest bits of scraps for this blanket. So when I finished one of my hexagons and I had the tiniest little bit of yarn left over, I always, well, recently I've been saving it. Not always, not from the beginning of that Hexi blanket, but I don't remember when I started saving my tiny, tiny little pieces of scraps, but I have for a while now. And again, with this diamond motif blanket, I'm still continuing to save itty bitty little scraps like this. And I'm joining them together using the Russian join method, and then I am adding them to this granny stripe blanket. So this is a very slow growing project because of the tiny amount of yarn that I'm adding to it. There is a progress keeper right there, and that shows where I was the last time I showed this off on an episode, which was quite a while ago. So this is a very, very slow growing project, but I think it's so cool. I love how it's so colorful. The color change is so quick. Since I'm using such tiny little pieces, sometimes I only get like 3 little granny clusters before the color changes. So in fact, I think it might take me longer to join all the little scraps using the Russian join method than it does to actually crochet those scraps up, because it's just kind of a time-consuming process, I guess. I used the tutorial by Bella Coco to know how to make this blanket. I started off with a chain of 300 and something. I did not mark where I have my notes. Oh, here it is. I started off, with exactly 300. So I started off with a chain of 300, and I started this in July of last year. Again, I'm using that same hook. That's just my standard hook with fingering weight scrappy blankets, 2.75 millimeter. So that's the nice thing about crochet, is that you can just switch out the hook from project to project. Anyway, so I love this project. It's such a treat when I do get to work on it, because I don't work on it very often. It's whenever I have enough scraps saved up, and right now this is all I have saved up in this basket. So that's not enough. I think I usually wait until I have about 20 grams of scraps before I add them into the blanket, but it doesn't really matter. Just whenever I have enough saved up, then I add them in. But I think it's so cool. It's a nice scarf right now. It's so pretty, I think. I love it. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if 5 years down the road, I'm still slowly working on this project. But that's okay. It's so fun. It's so pretty. Oh, I love it. Isn't that cool? And no matter which way you look at it, it's going to be a little different because the colors change so much. I think it's so cool. I love it. All right. My next Scrappy blanket is being held in this felt bag that I got from my husband's aunt. And it's just a great big sized bag that holds my Excavation Blanket. This is a free pattern by Jana, Pihota. And this is kind of my memory blanket, basically, because whenever I finish a project using fingering weight yarn, I add it to this blanket, if I have enough. So on my last episode, I showed that I had finished a pair of socks, stripy socks for my youngest son. And I used a contrasting yarn for the heels and toes, but I need to have at least 5 grams to add. You have to add 2 rows in each color. So I did not have enough to add that. I only had, I think, 4 grams left of that yarn, so I did not add that in. But if I do have enough yarn left over from a project that I finish in fingering weight yarn, then I always add it to this blanket. I have a couple of, actually several different progress keepers on here, which I'm going to go over in a minute, but the one that's showing where I was last time I recorded is this one here. So I've added several inches to this blanket since I showed it last, and the rows are very, very long right now. Oh, I wrote it down. I counted and wrote it down because on that last stripe that I just added, I just started decreasing. So this blanket is worked in a simple corner to corner manner. So you always do an increase stitch at the beginning of each row and until it gets to the size that you want it. And now I'm starting to decrease. So it's going to be a square. And the size that it was before I did that decrease row was a total of 618 stitches. So again, the way that you do this blanket is you leave a tail at the beginning of each row, so about a 6-inch tail, I guess, and then you go across and back again, increasing at the beginning of each row, and then you leave a tail when you get done with that row. I started this back in 2017, and so I went through and marked how much progress I made each year. So this first progress keeper is showing what yarn I added to this blanket in 2017. And then the next progress keeper, you can see that section between that progress keeper up at the top and the little bird cage. That was from 2018. Then, oops, there's 2019. And from that, it's like a little dancer progress keeper to this circle. That is from 2020, which is a lot shorter, isn't it? I didn't have as many fingering weight projects, I guess, last year. And so from that little circular progress keeper, that's what I've added in 2021. For the first half of the blanket, you just knit across every row. The original pattern has you, once you get to that middle point, it has you start working on the wrong side. And so half of your blanket shows the right side, where the stripes are a bit more clean. and then the other half of your blanket would be showing the wrong side, which isn't as clean. You know, it's a bit more muddied looking. And I really didn't want that look. I wanted it to have I wanted it all to be completely one side is the right side and one side is the wrong side. So at first I was thinking that I would just put the first half on hold, make a second half, and then sew those two halves together. But instead I've decided to purl across the whole second half of the blanket. As I've mentioned before, I really don't mind purling, but like I mentioned in my last episode, my purling stitches are a lot looser than my knitting stitches. So for the first half of the blanket, I was using a US 2.75 millimeter needle. Oh, my stitches are so close to falling off. Ah. And I switched to a 00 1.75 millimeter needle for my purl stitches. I have kind of pretty much determined that my purl stitches, I need to go down about 1 full millimeter size in order to match my knitted stitches. So I'm hoping that that will work out. And what I'm doing for the purl side is I'm just purling across until I get to the last 2 stitches, and then I'm purling the last 2 stitches together. So you can see here is my first tassel, first tassels or fringes, I guess, pieces of fringe for the opposite side of my blanket. So I will try to show you this in its entirety as well. I'm really nervous that the stitches are going to fall off. Oh, here you can see my sweater better. I should have shown that last time I stood up, but you can see it's full length, and the pockets have the contrasting color in them. That's kind of fun. Okay, I put some stoppers on the ends of my needles because I was so afraid the stitches were going to fall off. Okay, so you can see it's a pretty good size, and it will be a square basically, I guess. Yeah, it'll be a square. And it's not, yeah, it's a good size. Let's see. Whoa. You can kind of get an idea of it. Oh, I think it's cool. It looks really neat, I think. I think the effect of that is so neat. It's interesting to see the colors that I use throughout the years. At the beginning, there's a lot of pink that stands out to me. And then I have that big section of really light colors, and then blues. And then I've gotten into a lot of earthy gold warm tones in here. It's really interesting to look through and see and remember all the projects that I've made. It's really fun. And I love how the fringe looks at the end. I'm not sure how I'll finish that off when I'm all done, but I'll tidy it up in some way. Oh, it's so neat. I love it. I just love Scrappy blankets so much. So cool. It's pretty encouraging to know that this blanket is just going to be getting smaller and smaller every time I work on it. So that's fun, but another super long-term project. All right. My last work in progress is one that I haven't shown off on an episode in so long. I should have tried to go back and look, but there's no way I would know when I showed this off last. It was a long time ago. It's being held in this super large felt bag that I got at a thrift store again. And this is a beautiful blanket. Actually, I test crocheted this blanket when I first started it too. It is called Show Off Your Colors by Andrea Delhey. And it's originally written to use your fingering weight scraps, but I'm actually making this using worsted weight scraps. So I love this one so much, and I'm so glad that I've gotten back to it. It had been a really, really long time since I'd worked on it. Probably, I would bet that I hadn't worked on it in about a year. So I'm not 100% sure if this progress keeper is in the right spot from where I showed it off last time, but I'm assuming it is. So that is the amount of progress that I guess I've made on it since I showed it last on an episode. But again, I have no idea when that was. But when I recently picked this up, I was right here. I had just finished this row with this kind of indigo color, I guess. So I've added quite a few stripes to it just within like the last week or so. So this pattern is really, really simple, but so effective, I think. I think that the look of it is just really, really cool. The idea, what she recommends, is that you are careful with how you place your colors. So the way that I do it is this side is the more colorful side. So every other row I'm using a brighter color, and that's what kind of shows up more on this side. The brighter colors kind of stand out a bit more. And then the alternating rows, I am using darker colors. And if you turn it around to the other side, then I don't know if you can really tell, but the darker colors are a bit more prominent on this side. So it's really got a cool effect in that way. I think the pattern is so neat. It almost has like a plaid look to it, doesn't it? With the, there's both vertical and horizontal lines to it. It's really neat. I am using all of the yarn in here is 100% wool or a wool blend. And a lot of it is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. If you've watched my episodes before, that's no surprise because I use that yarn quite a bit. I am using a J hook, I believe. Yes, J 6mm hook, which I really don't like this brown color. I don't have anything against brown, but I lose this hook so easily. It like blends in with the blanket, and I don't know. I wish it was a bright color because I lose it a lot. Anyway, I do like clover hooks though. So it's all double crochets in US terms. It's just got this cool spike stitch that you can see here. And it's super easy, and she explains it very, very well in her pattern. I, again, am using the Russian join method whenever I need to change color. So if I run out of yarn mid-row, here you can see one that I changed from the blue to the orange, rusty orange color. I just, again, use the Russian join method, and then I change colors at the end of each row. And again, I use the Russian join method whenever I change colors at the end of each row. There are times when you get a little bit of yarn that kind of pokes out, and I just go back and trim those a little bit. So it's not a perfect way to cover up all your ends, but it's effective and it's very secure, so that's what I'm doing. I really love this blanket so much. So I think I'm going to try to keep focused on this blanket for I have quite a bit of worsted weight yarn that I can work through, so I have been adding 2 rows to this every morning for the last week or so, and I've really enjoyed that. So I think I'll continue to work on this a little bit each day just to see it grow. It's really, really relaxing and enjoyable to work on. So I highly recommend this pattern. It's so much fun. And I'm so glad to get it back out again. I had been really wanting to work on it some more, so I'm so glad I am. So those are all of my Scrappy projects. I do have one Scrappy project that is in the works. It is it's on my Make 9 board actually. It is a pattern by Emma of Potter and Bloom that I started making into a blanket, but I've changed my mind and I'm going to be transforming that into a shawl, but I haven't picked it back up to work on it yet. But otherwise, those are all of my Scrappy projects that I have in the works right now. So I'm so excited about all of them. I just really, really enjoy working on them. So I hope that you really enjoyed seeing my progress on them. I have a few new things that came in the mail that I am so excited to share with you all. The first are these adorable little packages that I received from Tracey of Grizzly Knits. She has recently started making progress keepers, and she sent me a couple of packages. One she said I could keep, and one will be for a prize. So I'm super excited about that. Here is her business card. So she even included a couple of light bulb stitch markers on there as little extras. And here is the progress keeper that I'm going to be keeping. I absolutely love these orange colored stones, and the craftsmanship is just so beautiful. And even the packaging, I mean, that's amazingly gorgeous. This is the sunset color. So pretty. I love that orange. And she also included, well, the little bag that it comes in is adorable as well, and it has Grizzly on there. And then she also included a little tin for you to store things in with her logo on there and Grizzly Knits and her Etsy shop name. So that's super cool. That would be great to store progress keepers in as well. So cute. So that's my little goodie package. And then the one that will be going into for a prize is this one here. And everything's the same except the stones on the stitch marker are these beautiful browns and kind of rose gold kind of colors. So pretty. This one is called Forest Walk. I love how she's given them names. That's great. Oh, that's so pretty. So that is so exciting. Thank you so much, Tracey. I really appreciate you sending this my way. And Tracey also has a YouTube channel where she shows off her knitting as well and her crocheting. So if you have not checked out her YouTube channel, I will link to that as well as her Etsy shop in the description box below. And I highly recommend you checking out her YouTube channel and her Etsy shop. And then I got another package from another podcast viewer named Hedi. She had messaged me after I had shared a couple of episodes ago that I did not have any solid red sock yarn to make for my youngest son who loves the color red. And I recently made him a pair of stripy red and white socks, but I didn't have any plain red sock yarn. And she had some that she was willing to send my way. So that was so thoughtful and generous of you, Hedi. I really, really appreciate it. So this is Regia 4-ply in the Castaway colorway. It's 75% wool, I believe. Let's see. I'm assuming it is. I actually don't know for sure. Yes, so 75% superwash wool, virgin wool, and 25% polyamide. And I'm pretty sure that the stripy socks I just finished were also Regia, and I'm pretty sure that red is like a perfect match to the striped red in the other socks I made for him. So he was so excited to see this come in the mail for him. Whenever I get a package, it's very typical that it's yarn. And so my kids kind of assumed that I had gotten a package of yarn when this came in the mail. But I said, actually, this yarn is for Everett. And so, yeah, he was super excited that this was specifically for him. So I will be probably casting these on fairly soon for him as well. Okay, lastly, I have a shop update. I shared last time that I am working on a pretty large shop update for some new project bags that I'm going to be putting in my shop. Again, I'm not sure when. I do have several that are very, very close to being done, so I may put some in my shop before they're all done. I haven't decided yet. But last time I recorded an episode, somebody had commented that they would really like to see, because in this shop update, I'm going to be having several different fabrics in several different quantities. So anyway, somebody had suggested that maybe I show off the different fabrics that I'm working on for this shop update. So I have several different types of bags. Well, they're all the same size of bag, but several different fabrics, 4 bags in various different stages of the process of making that I will be sharing with you. So last time I shared with you this bag, and it has this gray and yellow fabric with black for the bottom and the drawstring casing. And then it has this gray polka dot on the inside. And I showed off my new feature. They always have this interior pocket. And then I have this new feature of having a little clip inside. And also included will be 6 stitch markers that are closed ring stitch markers. They're my favorite. So that's my new feature that I'm super excited about in my new bags. And I'll go through all of the fabrics that are going to be going into the update whenever that is. Again, if you want to know when I update my shop, the best place to follow me is probably on Instagram, because I will always post on there as soon as I update my Etsy shop. So this one is very close to being done. I just need to put in the drawstring and sew on my label. But this is a really fun lime green canvas type or duck cloth for the top. And it has this deep brown corduroy for the bottom and the drawstring casing. And it has this lighter brown with X's on the inside. Here's the pocket. And then this one has the bronze gold clasp and stitch markers, and they have a bit of texture to them, whereas the silver are smooth. So that's that color. Oh, I was going to try to remember how many I have of each. I believe I have 4 of this fabric. I have 4 of this one. I only have 1, and I am assuming this will go pretty quickly whenever I update my shop, because the last time I had this bird fabric, they sold out very quickly. So this was a really popular one, but I only had enough fabric to make 1 more, and the fabric is out of stock right now, so I can't order any more of it. So I will only have 1 of this bird fabric with the charcoal gray bottom, and this has a light gray kind of polka dot interior. You can probably hear my kids outside playing again. Okay, the next one, I only have 3 of these. So it has kind of a gold and grayish blue zigzaggy stripe pattern to it. And that also has the charcoal gray for the bottom. And it has this light gray, I don't know what to call that. I don't know how to describe that. Kind of floral looking, I'm not really sure. And I think all the other bags have silver instead of the bronze gold. So whatever I think looks best with the fabric. But I think all of these have silver, except for that one so far. The next one I'm super excited about is this kind of a handkerchief fabric paired with black. But then on the inside, I did this bright pop of a lime green. So I just thought that was a really fun way to brighten up this bag. So hopefully you guys will like that too. I have 6 of these. The next fabric is this pretty gray background. It has like a seafoam green, yellow, and orange. I think it looks like a kaleidoscope. So pretty, I think. And it has the dark gray for the bottom. I have 5 of this, and they all have the gray polka dot in them as well. And I will have 4 more of this same fabric, but paired with a lighter gray for the bottom. And I have not sewn these together yet, but here are the pieces that are cut out. So it will be just like this one, but instead of the dark gray, it will have a lighter gray. And again, I'll have 4 of those, and they will also have the polka dot for the interior. Okay, the next one, I've just sewn the exterior pieces together. So I guess it might be kind of fun to see the bags in process. So this is kind of the first step of the bag making, is you sew these pieces together. So you can kind of get an idea of what it will look like. But anyway, the main fabric is this pretty gray with white flowers on it. And then the bottom is a natural colored canvas material. And the interior of those bags will have this light gray leaf fabric. And I will have 3 of these. The next one will have this pretty fabric for the main fabric on the outside. And this will be the bottom, this green color. will be the bottom and the drawstring casings. So you can kind of see what it'll look like if you can use your imagination. And the interior for this one will be this green with gold polka dots. So it's kind of got a gold metallic look to it. So that will go together. And I will have 5 of these. The last one I have is similar to the lime green with the brown corduroy, but this one is a charcoal gray pattern. So that's the main fabric. The bottom and drawstring casings will be the dark charcoal again. And the interior fabric will be this white with black triangles. And I will have 6 of this combination. So that's everything I've been working on lately. As I said, I've just been working on those project bags a little bit each day. So again, I'm not sure exactly how I will do that update, if I will do it in different stages or all at once whenever I'm done with everything. Stay tuned to, Instagram again is the best place to find out about that. Or you can also, I think, just check out and favorite my Etsy shop to get notifications. Maybe if I update my shop, I should check that out to find out exactly how that works. But anyway, I think that's all I have to share with you all today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I would appreciate that so much. Thanks so much for joining me today. Bye-bye.